Okay, so I hope you can hear me, but this video I think will be entitled, and it may be a temporary video too, but it will be entitled Walking a Tightrope in This Matrix World. Now, that just come to me before I made the video because that's why I'm making the video, because I do feel, not only feel but experience every day, that that reality, in the sense that, I'm walking a tightrope, and so are most real people, I would imagine. This, of course, I don't know, but we're walking a tightrope in the sense that everything we do every second will be challenged by the Matrix God, by its minions. And that is just the reality. By minions, I mean those that are operating on this, in this reality, under the influence of the Matrix or the Matrix God entity. And, that just means that they will be working and pushing always in opposition to any positive actions, thoughts, ideas of a real human being. This is just the reality from my perspective, and that's why I say it's walking a tightrope, because I'm aware of this, but I'm still walking a tightrope. It doesn't matter that I'm aware of all this daily. I am still walking a tightrope. I'm still always playing, because it's unavoidable. And I'm going to try to explain this. I don't have to explain it to some of you, but maybe to some others who might not be walking that tightrope quite so strongly, or the Matrix not showing itself quite so clearly. It will show itself to all eventually. There's a saying which was brought to my attention a while back. I don't know where it comes from, but all that is hidden will eventually be revealed. And I've said this many times. I think it's a good saying. But you see, it's being revealed slowly and being revealed one at a time. So therefore, the Matrix always keeps its upper hand, because if the Matrix exposes itself to me today, but to you tomorrow, when I no longer exist, then you see what I'm trying to say. It's a bit like that old movie that I used many, many, many videos ago as an example of how the Matrix tends to play its game. In that Lost Patrol movie, it picked off a Lost Patrol that basically had more players and stronger players than the ones that were against it. They were in the desert type of thing, if I remember, and the enemy was hidden. And that is like the Matrix too. Like, never at any stage did the Lost Patrol, that was a group of fellas that were lost in the desert, never at any stage. They were a patrol, so they were safe. But they had a hidden enemy. In other words, they didn't know how many of the numbers were of the enemy. They assumed that the numbers were greater than them, and that was their mistake. So they assumed the enemy was more powerful than them. And so they got picked off one by one. And in reality, they shouldn't have lost any of their patrol, because in the end, when there was only one final fella left, that was the main commander of the patrol, shall we say, he realised the sad reality that he needn't have lost at all, and that he was not outnumbered at all, and that this invisible enemy, because he never saw how many were there, all they felt that they were surrounded, because they were being picked off one at a time. They felt that there was more powerful and more enemy than what there actually was. And this is pretty much how the Matrix, I think, operates and plays its game, because it's really not a one-on-one power struggle or frequency vibration struggle. No, it is very much a hidden game, like in this movie, where because you don't fully know what's going on, and because you are, like I say, I know I'm losing it here again. I'm so sorry, as usual. I realise I'm losing you and myself in the process of making the video, because see, when I say walking a tightrope, that's what I mean. You're walking a tightrope, because even though, like, supposing I was in that lost patrol and I knew, I still knew that the enemy had less manpower, shall we say, than my patrol. But I still can't see them, and they know the desert better than me. And I know that they're picking off my patrol one by one. Supposing I was different to the commander in that movie, and I actually knew what was going on, because he realised it at the end and thought, oh, if I'd only known that, I could have saved my whole patrol, we would have been okay. But supposing I was the opposite to that commander and actually knew right from the start that there was less enemy and that they were, were going to pick off my patrol one by one. Even in this matrix, it's kind of like this, though, that even if you know you have a patrol of your own kind that won't listen, that don't believe that believe the numbers are vast, believe there is no possible, believe that they are outnumbered, and don't believe that they're being picked off one by a lesser force. So therefore, you're like a commander that has no power over your particular patrol, shall we say, like in the movie. And so therefore, they're not going to agree with you, and therefore they're going to oppose your ideas and go with the played out scenario of being picked off one by one. I don't think I made sense there. I'm so sorry. I better go back to being sidelined by the Matrix. See, I'm sidelining you and myself by my comparisons. I'm very sorry. I just got a terrible headache thinking of how poor I made these videos. But either way, this video I think might just be a temporary video. I normally put all the videos out and leave them there, or at least most of them. 2 days ago I deleted about 4 or 5 hours of video that I had recorded at the window up in the bedroom, and because I was about to send it out and then changed my mind, which I've never done before, where I actually delete something fairly soon. But that was because I felt that, because I was also filming, like out the window, I was proving, or trying to prove at a physical, practical level, the existence of the movie was called The Lost Patrol, Well, I was trying to prove a patrol matrix. That just come to me. That was actually quite pleased with that. Now I mustn't get carried away with myself, because see, that was what I was, because I just, if you just put your mobile phone up to a window or out on the street, say, just out the door, you don't know what is going to happen. It's, you're in a matrix, so you know that things are usually happening all the time. But it still appears like random cars, random people, random planes, random incidents, random this, random that. Everything just accidental and may or may not be too much or too less. And so what I was just trying to say was I deleted it, because although I thought that the video was showing the existence of, the Lost Patrol, and believe you me, in Leichhardt or in Sydney, because I would imagine it is, it could be, this whole matrix thing with who is more of the matrix, who is less of the matrix. Most people are part of the matrix one way or another, from my observation. But some are not aware they're part of it, I would think. But they're still participating because their actions and their the way they play the game of life can be negative towards their own, etc. But either way, I'm losing track here again. They are the Lost Patrol, indeed, like the old 1932 movie called The Lost Patrol. They are lost, and they are a patrol, and they patrol, and they watch. Instead of watching themselves, they're watching you and me. If they watch themselves and actually tried to think about this matrix, or about the world, or about a bigger picture, as opposed to just personally pinpointing and putting all their energy into single human beings or single ideas, obsessions, events, etc., their perception of the reality, which is totally warped in a matrix. Everything in a matrix is not what you think. We know that. It is all about leading you down the garden path. Leading you down the garden path that they want you to be led down. Leading you to think like the Matrix wants you to think. Which is like, and it will not be to your benefit, because the Matrix is essentially anti-life, anti-human. So that's just the bottom line of it. If you really see it that way and understand, and understand that that's the true reality, as I do now, unfortunately, then you can't imagine that you are being led down any garden path that is going to be a real benefit for you in the long run. It might appear to be correct, it might appear to be logical, it might appear to be practical. I'm sure that the Lost Patrols of the Matrix are just as lost as the Lost Patrol in that movie, except that they do know that they do negative things. But they probably convince themselves that they're doing negative things in the name of something that is positive, because they have their beliefs and their obsessions and their reasons and their motivations for why they do things. There could be a whole lot of different reasons and motivations for each person, I would imagine. But either way, I've gone off the track again. Getting angry with myself again. That's no good. But look, all I'm trying to say, and I'm making this video for a few people. In the past I was making the video actually for one, which is kind of strange. And I was like, because I essentially thought that because there again, I don't know the mindset of who's on the other side of the mobile phone. But I kind of get it that there are more people that have a similar mind, or at least a similar way of looking at the reality, than what I originally thought, because but either way, that's not really the point. I still make the videos in a singular mindset, so it is kind of still, because it's a question of what connection you've got and what it can do for you, or for making the reality more positive. That is the hard thing to fathom, even for myself. But, I now personally have no other choice but to go with, as I mentioned in many videos ago, with what you could call pure instinct. And that could be hit or miss, but I have no option but to do that. So I do back my own instinct and judgment on things, sometimes, most of the time in fact, but sometimes on some people, I would probably go all out and take a big chance, even though there is always doubt. It can't be helped in a matrix, and the matrix God entity and its minions and its reality wants humans to be in doubt, to not be able to trust 100%. And how can you when you know that at least 90% of what is around you is possibly negative? Now that also could be a deception too. That's another thing, because it could be, that just come to me this very second, that could be like the Lost Patrol, to where I assume there is more negative in the true reality than what there actually is. Because if you have negativity converge in your particular space, you naturally think the entire reality is all negative. That is also a matrix, taking over your senses and your reality, which it does. Now, I didn't put that well, but either way, I'm trying to get on to point here, because I'm thinking of, I'm in two minds at the moment, in the sense that I'm mainly making this video to try to almost apologize for the tightrope walking that I am doing, even when I make a video. I'll try to explain this. One of you will know, but some it won't matter to even, so you can turn the video off. But if you have experienced any negativity relating to my videos recently, shall we say, then this is for you, shall we say. I walk a tightrope without being specific, because the reason I'm not specific is because I am walking a tightrope. You see, I make videos for people who are on the other side of the world that I basically have never met, whereas I have to deal with real people around me at a personal level, and at and at a street level, as we've mentioned, and so therefore sometimes the two unfortunately cross paths. I think it would be better if they don't, but that can't be helped. I can't control. When you make a video, you make it for anyone who cares to listen. And that, of course, was the original idea, was for negative people to listen to, the idea that maybe, even if you're a negative person, that maybe you can be bamboozled by this matrix reality, and that maybe even if you are working on the darker side of things, shall we say, and when I say working, I mean whether you are working intentionally, because when you imply work, it tends to imply that you know what you're doing and you're intentionally doing something and you're being rewarded for that action or for your participation in this earth world or matrix. See, there's a bit of a difference sometimes, because people that think that the world is a natural earth, but that they are the only matrix. In other words, how that was I was trying to be too clever there, but see, it just comes to me, so I don't really know what I'm talking about most of the time, as you know. But you could have like a lot of people think there isn't. I assume this, and I could be wrong about this too, because I am being played and the game bamboozles us all. It depends on what the numbers are. It could be, as I said in another video, that I'm the only one in the dark, and yet I am aware of the matrix, but I still could be bamboozled by the numbers. In other words, I could be, when I say, oh, because I'm making these videos for real people, I know the sum, but those numbers might be so few, much fewer than what even I realise. So therefore, when I'm saying, oh, there are people that are in the dark and that believe in a natural earth, but that they are like the matrix because they are the patrol force of a natural earth. So they are acting like a matrix because their matrix is a control system. That's what matrix is, as we've said before, like in the Matrix movie, when the fella says to Neo, who is the one, because his name backwards is one. One really only means, I would think, that you have power or potential to vibrationally, frequency, or in any other ability you have way to make the reality how you want it. And hopefully that's going against the negative matrix and making it more positive. Because naturally, if you're a human being, you cannot stand living in this negative matrix. So you not only want to make it more positive, you know that it's imperative, that it's absolutely essential, that your survival depends on it. And that's the truth. But the opposition is vast and has made very big grounds. In fact, the whole Earth is a closed matrix system now. But either way, like I say, I've gone off the track here. But, the words are coming out faster than the thoughts actually sometimes. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why that is, but I hope it makes sense. But, if you think you are of the matrix, you could think that and know it and be consciously working as a disciple or a collaborator of this lost patrol that is the matrix, because it's essentially a lost patrol. It's lost because it's negative. It's lost from it. The God entity wants people to be lost. So it is a lost patrol. I'm trying to be too flowery and fancy here, so I should stop that. Because if I get too carried away with putting the ideas into an interesting way, then I might just lose the point. But, I said before, I try to make subtle videos, subtle fairy tales. I don't like to make them too graphic. Even though the reality is quite stark, dark and graphic, really, in a way. Well, not in a way, it just is. But I think that that's not what most people can tolerate. And it's not what I can tolerate either, but, I have to. See, I understand that a lot of people want to avoid that graphic truth of the Matrix. Because, it's easier to live in a halfway delusional world. It is. To assume that things are a little bit negative, but not totally negative. So therefore to assume that, and I'm only guessing this because, like I say, the actual comprehension that each individual may or may not have of what is the Matrix reality, or what they are really participating in, or what they are really trying to accomplish in this reality, I don't know. I don't know how many people fully understand the full extent of what their actions are actually doing, or what they're participating in. I don't know that. I make the videos assuming that it's not only a lost patrol, but a patrol that's in the dark, doing things in the dark, acting dark, but still in the dark. Like there are people that know they are doing negative things, but they don't know that the negative things are really negative for the whole reality. I didn't put that well. Lost my whole track, got too carried away. See, what I'm trying to say is there are many ways of looking at things, as I've said before, because if you don't know the 100% full reality, where you know all the details, you assume certain things. It's much easier if you actually understand the full reality, but either way, I could take it to the extreme and say it's basically all negative, apart from a limited amount of positive that is now left in the Matrix. That's how you certainly are made to feel, and that certainly gives that impression that is the reality. How true it really is, I'm not sure, because I would say that because it is an illusion reality, that then would make someone like myself say, well, that idea of looking for your own lost sheep, shall we say, then you would throw that out the window and say, well, there's no point. They're either for or against that type of thing, and you see it very bluntly in black and white. And that also then would probably mean that you're playing as the Matrix God and its minions wish you to play, because you're not going to realise that maybe, all is not lost. All is not a lost patrol, but because I'm not making sense here. I better stop that. Sorry. Okay, so the idea of like I was trying to make the point that this video is really an explanation as to the sidetracking of why there have been problems even in making videos in recent times, because over the time that I've made videos I've really had no problem. Usually I don't get much feedback, and I don't respond to comments. Not that I even get most of them. Sometimes, like I say, I get some of the comments that come up. I think I accidentally, I think I accidentally deleted a comment the other day, because, see, I do everything on the mobile phone, and I just realised that the mobile phone, this shows you how silly I am, that the mobile phone is really the same as the computer. But see, I was thinking, the YouTube is different to the mobile. So therefore, if I just delete it off my personal mobile to make more space, or so that negative ones won't see it, shall we say, because I don't want to cause any more problems than what I've already got. This is what I'm trying to explain here in this video. You have people that are on the other side of the world that are not physically part of my reality that listen to the videos. I might be more in sync with you at a mental level, and that I would have no doubts about, and have no sync or no mental connection or affiliation with anything that's around me. But I still have to deal with that reality, whereas I don't have to deal with the reality on the other side of the world. It's what's under your feet or in front of you that you have to deal with, that affects you, because they have the power to affect you. They have the power to affect then the reality. They can, as they are doing, bringing this reality to its knees, literally. And the whole purpose of that is to bring human beings to their knees, really, I believe, I think. Because I've said before, the human is the centre of the reality. The human thinking with the feeling and emotion is the indirect creator of the actual reality, one way or another. But it is so overridden by the matrix, God entity and its minions in this matrix world, all under the delusion that it's a natural earth. You know, it wouldn't even matter if it was a natural earth, as I say, because it is still a delusion, even if you buy into the natural earth. I don't care, whichever way you want to take it. I don't care. You know, the plane, I'll wait for the plane. Should be out there getting that plane. It might be a nice big low one. Not many of them at the moment. The matrix has changed its strategy, as you can see. You know, we are in much more closing times in my way of looking at it. That's how I feel about it, and actually see it in the reality too. I mean, it's not just fantasy that this world is closing down, is it? Or am I out of touch? You know, I ask anyone that. I don't have to ask the few that listen to me, but I could ask anyone that. But you'd be surprised at probably what they'd say, because, you know, like I say, they're living in their own land of delusion, some of them. How aware they really are. I think they focus so much on, I think some in the Matrix focus so much on just, you know, dealing with their own reality. In other words, they're so self-absorbed in their own reality, which, you know, you have to be a bit. But at the same time, if you're totally self-absorbed and you're under the delusion that the world revolves around you, which it actually does anyway, but, you know, the psychopaths of the Matrix think the world revolves around them. But they don't actually realise that it really does. They think it just means that they can control and manipulate people around them. And they're still living in the delusion that they're in a natural world, and that, you know, and that everything is still under their control to some extent. But they don't realise that that the world actually does completely revolve around them. The entire earth, the entire matrix, whether you think it's natural, artificial, or what do you think it's made of? You know, because even if it was a totally natural world, this is just what I think anyway, even if it was a totally natural world, it is still not what people think it is. So even if it is still a total natural world, it doesn't matter, because it is not natural anymore anyway. In other words, even if it was, say, an original Earth, that the Earth itself is natural. What is walking around on this natural Earth is not natural anymore. So it doesn't matter. if you're out there, as I would have done, well, maybe I wouldn't because I know I make these videos, but in reality, I'm not a person to walk around with a banner or what do you call those things that people used to walk around with something written on them, a stick with a cardboard with their idea written on. Never been like that. Always been too, I'm not sure what the word is, but when you're self-conscious. But you see, I make these videos now because I see the world as totally different. Sure, I still have my, I'm still this antisocial kind of self-conscious, kind of backstepping sort of person in myself, because you can't override a lifetime of conditioning and experience. But like I say, if you thought it was all going to be over tomorrow, that changes your whole way of dealing with things. You might still feel awkward doing all the same things. That's why it's still difficult dealing with a matrix, even knowing it. Like to deal with street matrix, for instance. If you're self-conscious, even if you say, oh, people, they're negative and foolish doing what they're doing. It doesn't matter what you think people's mindset are. You still see them as people. Just as you still see the animals as animals. Even though you know that is not the real reality. And that's why I say you're walking a tightrope making the videos, only in the sense that if paths cross, as I say, that's how I put it. In other words, if what is my reality here, dealing with people around me here, or personal people, crosses the path of these videos that go to people that are not in my reality, as has happened recently, if you're aware of it, then those of you that are on the other side of the world that listen to the videos have to be like myself. Yes, then you will be also walking the tightrope, because you will have to say, now, what is going on? Particularly if I don't personally interact to where you understand my personal relationships, what is going on around me here in this reality. Because while I'm making a video, there is no reality, is there? There's no, you're not going to see who is who or what while I make the video. But I was going to make this as a personal type of video. So this video is really only for one or two. It's really only for one, really, but or two. Like I say, I did accidentally delete a video. I don't normally touch the comments or the videos or anything. I didn't even see one till quite recently, which was left there many videos ago, because I was unaware of it. And it's still there. And I should delete it because it is basically all negative. And it is a view from, all I can say is that we've discussed this before in the videos, that even if we are left at the present time with all real humans, say, on the earth, and it's a natural earth, you're still dealing with such a high percentage of narcissistic, psychopathic people who are of that psychology or psychopathy, or whatever word you want to use, I'm not sure if I use the correct words because I have to try to be a little bit intellectual, even though obviously I'm totally unintellectual. But, you can still have a bit of intelligence or a bit of, you don't have to be a total fool in this reality. Most of us have been, and I have been for a life. I've been a fool for the Matrix and its players and operatives. When I say operatives, because even if you're playing for the Matrix in any way, if you're working against any real human being, especially one if that human being has a positive input, you are really an operative for the Matrix. And that only has to mean that you're of a narcissistic, psychopathic nature or personality type. Because if that is your overriding personality, that means you're overriding what you are as a person, that is extremely negative to another human being, because psychopaths basically don't like humans either. Just as the God entity, who is also of this same psychopathy in every way. In fact, that's what I say. We have minions that walk around in this earth that are complete replicas, even at a human level, of the God entity. The narcissistic psychopathic personality type is a total representation and a total takeover of human beings, if you want to look at it that way, in what has happened. In other words, you really have a takeover at a human level where human beings are not really behaving like the human beings that they should, if you want to look at it that way. Now, I personally think this, as I've said before, is largely possession. That's what I've seen myself. But even the possession, like in the movie The Innocents, it can be optional. Sometimes you let those negative, dark forces take you over, shall we say, and you think it's yourself, I would imagine, but I don't know. I don't understand fully. Some do it completely intentionally, and like the children in The Innocents, were totally aware that they were allowing dark spirits or dark forces or dark entities to take over their body. They actually, as children, were totally aware of it in the movie. I almost get the impression when I see a few, there again, because I can't speak on everyone, even though I'm basically dealing mainly with psychopathic personality types, and always have done too. I can't get into that person's mind. I can only read their actions, and even their actions, sometimes it's very hard to fathom whether they are consciously aware of the takeover or whether they are not, because, some people can be taken over, and if they're taken over from a young age, that means they're probably still at that young age. So they're like children, innocent children being taken over by a dark force, but they are not fully aware of it. They know that they act negative and what they probably do, but they may justify it. But so that's all I'm saying. This is that what has happened even in my own situation here with making videos even is that there has been interaction from negative possessed people that speak half-truths. Don't forget the psychopathic people will put some truth into what they say. But also you must remember that psychopathic people project a lot. So in other words, a lot of what they say about you or me is actually, it's a reverse world, so it's actually how they think about things, but they project it onto you. Now if you understand all these things, and some of the people that listen actually do, but you can still, if you're dealing, say, with someone that makes a video like myself that you really don't know and you're not living with them and you haven't lived their life, I make no excuses for my own past reality or for what is now. And even with the people that interact, they feel justified and there is some truth to their justification. But, if you feel that you can make up things and just project just because you think you're justified because of the past, and this is how a lot of, how some, this is what sometimes happens anyway, and this is what is happening here now, is that you have the past being regurgitated and crossing the path of my videos even, where because there has been negative in the past, and I have been guilty of that too, it is being projected into the present, But what is being projected in the present is really only from the past. In the present, everything that is being projected or said or put forward is not the true reality. And it is projection from the person who crosses the path and who speaks with you and tells you things. But if you don't know that person, if you don't know me, if you don't know, even if you are one that knows more than myself, and I think this is so, like I say, you are still walking a tightrope in this matrix reality, so you can still, like myself, be fooled. So you will have to stick with not only your instinct and what you originally think, and you have to be aware of all these things that we are aware of. But it's still, like I say, the matrix will play you and will separate everyone, particularly if you're not meant to be separated. The whole purpose of this matrix game is to separate humans, real humans, who don't want to be part of the matrix and who can't be, even if we have been in the past. Even if we've been playing in the past unintentionally, unknowingly. Yes, and now it comes back, as I say, to bite us. It comes back to bite me, even in making the videos. But as long as it doesn't, it may or may not matter. Because, the videos go out to people on the other side of the world. So it may or may not matter. It matters to me. It matters to me if I actually know someone, or think I know them, or have communicated. If I haven't, it still matters, but not to the same degree, I have to admit. But you have to say to yourself whether it's a benefit to you or not to If you were already not in the dark and of the matrix, and you've got it reasonably fathomed out or worked out, then even if you get your communication with me wrong and decide to walk away, it probably may not matter, because at least, as I said, if you're on the right path, as we all know ourselves, you're still going to be okay, and that's probably the main thing, I would imagine. But on the other hand, if you're like myself, and occasionally, well, not occasionally, it's almost daily, to be honest, but some days are worse than the others, where, in the sense that I realise this from my own reality, that some days you really do feel that you've lost. No, you haven't lost the plot, but you have lost your grip on keeping yourself sane almost in this reality. Now I'm, really, when I say sane, that's really the wrong word, because you can't go insane. Everything else is actually insane. It might be, as I've said before, that you might be labelled with insanity. Like if someone says you're schizophrenic, or you're this, or you're that, that is technically, in the matrix definition, insanity. I personally don't believe, this is my own thinking, is that there's no such thing as any of those conditions. In fact, it's a reverse war, so it's actually the reverse. Those that appear to be out of touch and are picking up vibes from other things that appear to be out of touch to the so-called normal average person, that person is actually at the higher level. They are picking up what the normal people should be picking up but can't see, because they're in the matrix. They are under a cloud, under a dark cloud. But they think that you, who see more, are in the dark and are delusional or insane, whereas in reality it's actually them. Especially if you are, we all know that if you are a narcissistic psychopath, that is technically insane anyway. But as that is now more than the vast majority, that is the norm. So that is not, even though it is really it really is the only insanity. That is really the only psychiatric insane condition, really, in my view. All the others are actually the opposite. They're human beings who are just seeing more. But because other people can't see the ghosts, shall we say, like if ghosts are real and you can see them, you're more in touch, you're at a higher level than someone who can't see them. And that's not meant to be taken literally, by the way, although there could be some people that can actually see what isn't there. But I actually aren't one of them, so I have to say that. But I do think that it's true, but I don't see them. So I'm still classed as sane by saying that, I'm still sane by standards. But most people would say, oh, you're a little bit you're foolish to believe something that isn't so. That's probably what they say. So they might even say you are a bit screwy, but if you actually, I did do the cat video, didn't I, with the possession. That video in the past could make me certifiable. And actually, I would have thought someone was certifiable doing it, or even saying it, only a few years ago. Well, like I say, I hope that just before I go on to the nature in the matrix, just for a wee bit, if I've got some space left here, and if I can calm myself a bit, because I think it's important to be relaxed and clear when you're making the videos, and I never am, because I'm under matrix influence and matrix suppression all around me. And so therefore, trying to show the matrix, like I say, see, I'm all over the place now because I've got 3 different ideas coming into my head. I've got 3 different video talks coming into my head at the moment, and I'm trying to think, and I'll try to say them, but then I'll look, that's what happens. I was starting out by saying, if you put the mobile phone out on the street and say, look, have a look at your matrix, that is not going to work most of the time. One, the matrix will try to hide. They will run and hide, even though you cannot run and hide from them most of the time. Or you will look more intrusive and more patrolling than the matrix by filming it, you see. That's why I threw away and discarded about 5 hours of filming at the window, because it didn't really prove anything unless you actually understand that there is intent behind the actions of most people around you. And I'm just going to mention this point because I deleted the video. And I'm just going to say it at a practical, very simplistic, practical level. Like, for instance, okay, so, I go outside, okay, just outside the door, and a car pulls up, in front of me. And I'm aware of it. Other people just see it as a random car pulling up. Someone gets out the car, or maybe 2 people get out the car. This is what actually happened the other day. It happens all the time, of course. It doesn't, when I say the other day, that would make it random. It happens daily, all the time. So that's what makes something not random, is if it's a common occurrence or if it's happening continually. Every time, if something happens that's what I'm saying, the matrix will hide if you put your mobile phone out and press the record knob, I think. Depending on how quick you are, and depending on how it sees it. Because there again, if it assumes that what you film, even though it is people with intent, loitering with intent, as was the title of a demigod's book that I have not read, but I've heard of it, okay? You can, in other words, so a car pulls up in front of you, 2 people get out, they hug and kiss, then they get back into the car and eventually drive away. Now, you'd say, so what? And they could get out and do anything, but they basically drive up, just get outside the car, hug and kiss, then both of them get back into the car and drive away. Now, you'd say, what's wrong with that? Well, I'd say there's nothing wrong with it, but it actually doesn't make entire sense. But of course, most people wouldn't even notice these things. But if you are, like myself, not of the matrix, and the matrix has opened up and exposed itself, you see what I'm saying is that, yes, you could have a car pull up and someone could get out. But if they just get out and hug and kiss in front of you and then get back into the car, doesn't that seem like an odd thing to do? Like they could do it in the car, but clearly they're not leaving one another and they're not departing. And even if they were, there again, if you actually understood that those people are not related, not connected, but you'd have to know that. You'd have to say, well, because you can't always know everyone. But if you actually do know that, or if you know, for instance, that they've just hugged and kissed someone when they live around, next door or something, and they've got a husband or a wife, that would seem strange too. But you'd have to pick up these, what I call anomalies. Anomalies means, as we all know, that's a fancy word for something that doesn't fit, something that's out of place. If something's out of place and doesn't make common sense or just regular sense, an observation that other people would notice. So that was just an example. So that's just a matrix display for one person, but another person, but as only you is watching. And even if someone else was on the street, they're not going to take too much notice. Then even if you saw one anomaly, like even supposing I was standing there with someone else and two people get out, hug and kiss, but then get back into the same car. I mean, of course, there could be some other explanation. That's what someone would say to me. Say, oh, maybe they were going to part and then they decided to get back in the car. So there's always. But what I'm trying to say is that it's still an odd action, but if you see these odd actions on a daily basis type of thing, then that is seeing the matrix, because you know then that action, that is a staged reality for you. But it will be staged one by one for each person. So this is how the matrix, I think, gets away with its staged reality and allowing some people to see it, but not others to see it, because, as I've said before, it's like the lost patrol. If I'm shown the reality now, but someone else has shown it tomorrow when I'm no longer with them or no longer here, then they will be dealing with this negative reality the same as me in an isolated way to where you can't really get on top of it. Because it doesn't matter who or what you are as a human being. If you're isolated and separated from, those that would be a support to you, or a benefit in some way, or just to help in very little ways even. Like I mentioned, the fact that that I could theoretically do more with the mobile. That's why I haven't been able to do so many things, because I'm not computer, I'm not used to even the mobile. I know I make the videos, but I don't do much else with it. And I don't have a computer anymore. I never did anyway, but I did have the use of one when I was not alone, a few years ago. And I found it easier to do things on the computer than on the mobile. So I can't, so there's a lot of things that I can't do, but that most people can do. So if I had a supportive, normal human being, even little things that other people take for granted, I find difficult to do because I don't have the know-how. I mean, I could even perhaps get back to going live, which I prefer to do, only because I think it is better for the people that listen, because then you can communicate with one another and put your ideas to other people, as opposed to me just rambling for, ages. But, I can't set up a computer myself. Even if I've got one, I can't set it up. I don't know how to do that, because I was, I can't do that anymore on the mobile phone, because this reality keeps changing to where, we're continually up against obstacles, really, even little ones. So, this matrix reality is like that. It knows that sometimes even just little things can make a big difference, because, that example of me not being able to set up things on a computer, And it was the same on the mobile phone, but, if I'm lucky and can get temporary help, then I can do something. I'm not totally stupid. It's just that I'm not very, it's like everything else. If you're not shown something, and that is true of this whole reality, we're not shown a lot. We're not shown the true reality. So therefore, it's not that we're really stupid, but we appear to be stupid and foolish because if you're taken down a wrong path, but you assume that is the true reality, then naturally you're going to be operating and living a life of illusion or deception. You're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to be playing in the matrix, playing for those that do understand the true reality and will use it to keep you playing in the reality the wrong way, against yourself and against those that might be a benefit to you, that should be a benefit to you, because there's not that many that are going to be the same as yourself or have the same way of looking at things. The disciples of the matrix are for the matrix negative technical God entity that in negative if you're a human. That's what I say. Not negative if you are of that mindset and of that belief kind of thing, or that you believe in those ideas. Like if you believe that the future is technology, then you are going to go along with that. Technology can never ever be anything but a death trap for a human being. A death trap for a human being. That was a good one. It's a trap, but it's also death, because technology cannot sustain itself. Technology can, for a period of time, in my opinion, appear to offer you much, especially if you are a limited human being, but being suppressed to where you feel limited, to where you are limited in this reality. So it is very tempting then to want to use technology to elevate yourself. Am I putting this correct or not? I think I might be. And that's what's happened with a lot of human beings. They don't see technology as a death trap. They see it as a means to an end of bringing them up to a level that they should be at naturally, or should have been at naturally. But they don't realise that that is the illusion of technology. But its ultimate end can never be anything but negative, because technology can never sustain itself. The God entity and its minions know this, or at least when I say its minions, maybe not all its minions, but the God entity knows this, or does it? There again, I'm not 100% sure, but it certainly would be facing, it's, like I said before, it's a bit of a race. Technology cannot go on and on and on. At some point, it's kind of like, I don't fully understand this, but it put simply, and I put this simply, I think, in a video a long time ago. It's like a bit like, you can have a copying machine. You know how we have copying machines, and you keep copying and copying and copying, and gradually the ink runs out, I think. And then in the end, you end up with nothing. You can't reproduce any more paper copies. That doesn't happen with normal, natural, real human beings. They can go on producing those paper copies infinitely, because each time something is produced, it is perfect. It doesn't lose anything. You don't use any ink. The ink doesn't get less and less. The paper, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm trying to use an example, and I'm not sure if it's a good one. I don't think it is now when I think of it. But either way, my point being that technology is a different means for sustaining things, and eventually it runs out, whereas the natural, normal human process never runs out. Well, some people might say we don't care because we don't, like even if they're, even if you're with technology. But I do think, that they might say, well, I don't care because I only want one carbon copy and mine's still reasonable, so, it looks pretty good to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. I've lost the plot again, sorry. But either way, if I think that, I personally think this is the situation and the true reality. Either way, I would probably go along this line, regardless. Even if it wasn't so, I would still go along this line. Only because, I'm personally a liker of things that are natural. I'm a liker of real species. And by that I mean any species that is real. I think it is unique. That's just me. But I now think that we live in a world where this is not the case. So even if it was a natural world, most of what we have on it, I think that we still live in the illusion that we still have everything. We might think we have limited numbers of natural species and things like this. But I would say that, that idea is probably also not what I would now think. Also, you do have to say, like even with the possession thing that's been mentioned, this possession thing, there's more to that too. Now, possession, may or may not be able to take place in certain species or certain bodies, shall we say. Now, I'm not fully going to be specific about this, but I personally think that and I'm not sure of this, I can't prove it, but that technology likes to reside in an unnatural body. And by unnatural, I mean not an original. That's, I'm going to leave it here because it's I don't think I can actually go on. There's too much negative frequency, vibration and energy around me. Even making the video today is very strained. I think that's because I was trying to, I think even with making the videos, you just have to make them and say, let it go, leave it, because it's a bit like someone said in the video in a comment, you have to just know things yourself and keep true to what you think should be. That's how I see it. I'm not a particularly idealistic person, but this negative reality, now seeing this matrix, makes you become idealistic a bit the other way because you see so much negativity. I've always been of the mind that, you can have a little bit of positive, a little bit of negative, as long as it's not too bad. Balances out a little bit, if you know what I mean. But it's not like that at all. Once you see the bigger scope of it all, and you assume that that scope is true, I take it to that high negative scope now. I think that it is behind the scenes like that. And I see enough of it in the real scenes. So, I think that so much is camouflaged in this matrix. That's how it keeps everyone playing, or at least it keeps those that wouldn't probably play if they were aware. I think that's the main question, is that this whole matrix game thing is really to try to figure out, or to try to separate those that are playing in the matrix, but if they knew what the matrix really was, or what this reality really was, then they would refuse to play in it. That's really all it comes down to. Or they would not want to play in it. Might still be forced like myself to play in it anyway, but you would certainly take a mental stand and say, I don't like this reality. I don't agree with the way it plays life in this reality. I don't agree with its anti-life policy, really, because it is an anti-life policy. That is at the back of the whole reality is the matrix God with its anti-life policy against real life of any sort, really, if you want to look at it that way. It's just that what I didn't realise was that that anti-life policy, which is against all life, all real life, actually now is mainly centred on real life humans, obviously for the reality that they have more input, but also the acceptance of the idea, or in my opinion, my fairy tale that I think is closer to the true reality, and that being that most life does not really exist anymore, and that most life so therefore, for me to be holding a banner even about life is probably a waste of my time and a waste of energy, because I may or may not be protecting or actually being on the side, shall we say, of real life, because it may already be gone. I might just be under that illusion that something is still there that actually isn't. Because I can't go over all the earth. I can't know what really exists everywhere. I only know what exists in a small area. So the rest is mainly what comes to me through technology, and technology is of the God entity. So, so it's like that. But, it's suffice to say that I think that the numbers of all real life is very low. When I say real life, I mean that which is of a natural variety, or a natural and actually seeks to keep that natural variety flourishing and going. Like I say, even if I endorse technology, I think this is where some people get tricked, because you probably can't have it always. You might be able to. I think I mentioned this before in a previous video, that, see, technology in itself in an artificial domain, even if you're in it, whether you're in an artificial or a natural domain, it's still how you think about it and how you're operating in it. But if you are in a domain that you have no control over, which is essentially operated by negative entities or by entities that are not of the same kind. If you have anti-life controlling life, or if you have technology controlling natural or nature, figure out yourself. It's and if that nature thinks that it is in a natural random world, when it's really in a technological domain that is controlled by technology only, and that technology seeks to control life with the end idea of suppressing that life, and in many cases actually getting rid of it from the technological Earth matrix. If you want to look at it that way, because it is like that in a way, and because theoretically speaking, you could have technology interacting even with nature, provided the technology was kindly towards the natural life forces. But it isn't like that if you have got a negative technology anyway. That's just trying to be more fair in looking at the situation. But you can't afford to be too fair about it, because that is not the reality. Technology, if you look at, like I always say, the movies have much to offer and show you reality, even though it also is technology. Oh, getting rather cold here. Technology, movies have warned about technology and different species and different things for a long time. On the other hand, they do promote acceptance of everything too. Like as human beings, we are meant to embrace and be all, we're not meant to distinguish too much between different things, because that's regarded as a sort of prejudice. But like I say, it's a dilemma, and like I said, walking the tightrope at the beginning of the video, which was only really a short video, really, that's turned into a long one as usual, which I might take this video down after a while. I may or may not, because I make a lot of videos, and I think that many of them are really, if you're only really talking to a few, and you think that whereas another video, it's meant to be a broad thing, because I made this video at the start just to go back a few videos in case there was confusion, because I think there was confusion, which even I'm not confused because I know what's going on in my local vicinity, shall we say, or in personal things. But for someone who listens on the other side of the world, they know. It'd be a bit like if roles were reversed. If someone that listens to my video was making a video, right, I then have to decide while I'm listening to you, that person who's making the video, say a subscriber, say, you making a video, I'm listening to it. I have to decide whether I think you're valid to listen to. And supposing I've already decided that, but then I get a third person that comes in and creates confusion, that intercepts this long distance relationship, even though it's not really, by throwing what's that saying? Throwing a spanner in the works, by setting up confusion. Someone left a comment, your dog videos were confusing. Okay, I should have got back to that video ago, but I thought that maybe they'd figure it out, but maybe not. The dog videos were confusing going back many videos ago. The reason the dog videos was confusing was because they weren't my dog videos. See what happened there, and I'll just try to fold up here, just try to explain it. What happened was, I made my usual video, and at the start of the video, I foolishly, and I say foolishly because you see, I've said this same comment many times before, going right back, 12 months. I have just randomly said, but I haven't made a whole video about it. No, I haven't did like a possessed cat video, which then propelled me into doing that. Or that's not the right word, but got me, I wouldn't say encouraged, because I was going to do a video on nature and animals anyway at some point. But I got kind of upset, so I just sort of did it without thinking. Now the point is though that a comment was left, your dog videos are confusing, and they were confusing because I didn't put them onto my mobile or download them to YouTube. They were downloaded by personal people or by the dog's owner. Of course, the dog that lives with me is not really my original dog. I never ever bought a dog. I had a relative living with me that brought their dog with them. They subsequently left due to great big problems and situations and circumstances, etc. All part of the matrix in a way, but also part of life if you want to be more realistic. The two cross paths too, just as personal things on even these videos, which hasn't been a problem during my 2 years in making them, but is a problem now. Finally come to rear its head. The matrix is going full force in every way it can at the present time, like I say. But the dog videos were put there by the owner, and they were just videos that the owner probably had of the dog in younger days, and also recently when they had taken them just a few times around here over the last year or two. But one was a real old video when the dog was young and totally different to what he is now, as you can imagine. I'm not going to go into that because all this animal stuff, as you can see, has got me into a bit of a pickle. And I knew it would too, because I never intended for me, when I talked about the dog, for instance, as I have done in other videos, but only usually fleetingly. See what happened at that video, going back many videos ago. I foolishly mentioned that the dog was technologically controlled, which I have mentioned in previous videos, but usually it's probably further into the video. So the owner didn't hear me say that his dog was technologically controlled. But I said it at the start of this video. I think it was Tiffany Matrix, or I forget which one it was, but it's there. And I said, the dog is technologically controlled, as you all know. And I've said it before. But the owner just happened to click onto my video. And because I said it at the start, they saw the comment about me saying that the dog was technologically controlled or possessed. So then the owner took offence at this and placed the video on there. I didn't even know. I saw it there myself the next day. And I thought, that's strange that all these dog videos were on there. But I'm not going to get into arguments with the dog's owner, so I said nothing. And I didn't remove the videos. I left them there, and they would still be there if if the owner had not removed them. The owner put them there for a few days, I think. There was I think there was only one comment or left, or there might have been two, I don't know. I remember one comment. I think that comment might have been enough for the owner to take the videos all down, to take them away. And so that's why the dog videos were confusing. But after that, because the dog had been introduced onto the video, and then the cat came in the next day when I had the mobile out, something just took over to me to where I felt that I will then talk about the possession that had taken place with the cat, because originally I was only going to talk about the dog. At some point, I've mentioned it only fleetingly, that the dog was the very first animal that I became aware of when the matrix exposed itself, opened up and closed down on me 3.5 years ago. The dog was the very first thing that I noticed. I knew the dog was technologically controlled 3.5 years ago, or just after that. The cat, on the other hand, it didn't even occur to me. I have to say this. Because I liked the cat. The cat was always my friend. So I never looked, and also the cat never did a lot of negative activity around me. The dog, like the Matrix, openly exposed that it was working in opposition straight away. It didn't about turn, it changed very quickly, within a few days of the Matrix first showing itself. When I only caught a glimpse of it, when it took a few months to where it really started to escalate and come down. But either way, right from the beginning, it's like, you see a few random cars that pop up regularly and a few random vehicles, and you know that they're the same ones. This is the Matrix showing you that it is a patrol force and that it's watching you, because you wouldn't even notice that if the Matrix didn't do it deliberately. Like, even if you were being stalked by a few cars, or even one car, you probably wouldn't really notice, because you don't look at every car. And a lot of the cars look the same, to me anyway. They have to actually draw your attention to it, especially someone like myself, to where you actually notice it's the same car and the same cars, and it escalates. So like I say, it gets more intense and becomes more. The numbers increase. But that's just to draw your attention to it in the first place. I'm not sure how it would work if they just threw it all at you in one big go. I'm not sure how that would actually work. Maybe then you wouldn't notice it as much, I don't know. But either way, I'm not making sense here, and I'm rambling all over the place. Look, I'm going to stick to the dog thing there. So the videos, this is just for a one-on-one here, because I know that the other one already knows. The real one of the Matrix. Because we're all of the Matrix. It's just that you can't help but be of the Matrix, because we're all in the Matrix. But when I say the real one of the Matrix already knows, because not because one is more cleverer than another, but merely because one has been given more information. So if someone knows me a bit better and I've given them information, which is what I'm trying to do now here to another one, shall we say, just so that things are clarified, because it can become a misunderstanding, and it's probably too late, because the Matrix has probably already had its way once again. I can't believe that the Matrix can actually have its way with those that are not one with the Matrix and ones that know even more than me about the Matrix and understand the reality more. This is how clever this Matrix is. But that's at a personal level, you see, because you notice things at a personal level, just as you do. You know, if you've got personal relationships and then they're ruined by the Matrix, or even impersonal relationships or long-distance relationships even, because everything's a relationship. And I say that honestly at this time. In the past, I wouldn't have looked upon me making a video to people as a personal relationship. No, because I would have said, well, look, there's a lot of people in the world. It's just me putting out information and, you know, I may or may not do it for various reasons. But now I don't see it that way because I see human beings as a unique, limited life that is left in this matrix at a diabolically difficult end-time scenario. And even if it wasn't the end, it's still a diabolically difficult time for some of us. So I assume if it's for some of us, that it's for all of us, but some of us might just not be aware of it as much, or some of us might be aware, but their circumstances will still be different. Like I say, it depends on how the matrix is playing each person. I don't know how they play each individual. I only know how they play me. I only know how they play one or two others. Because, you know, and I know obviously how those around me are being played. Or are they playing consciously and part of the game and in full agreement with it? Are they of the Matrix God? Are they so believing in all that technology and that future and that idea that they wholeheartedly agree with it? Or are they humans in the dark that think they're playing for something positive but are really playing against themselves and against their relatives and against their future, really? Whether it be a real matrix, or when I say a real matrix, a natural matrix, it's a natural matrix at the very least. At the very least, we live in a natural matrix. In other words, that's a natural earth, but it is still a controlled matrix that has been taken over completely by technology and people who use and operate technology. That's the very least scenario. You know, I'm not privy to any secret information. I just observe and see my own reality, which smacks me in the face every day. And they don't care. They don't care what I think. They only care what you think or what others might think, or the potential for others who are in the dark to think the same way. Perhaps that's the only real fear. That's the only reason the Matrix hides. And actually it's not hiding very much at the present time, even though to most people it seems to be still hiding. I don't see how it's hiding at the moment. Because I don't think it matters how a Matrix brings in its matrix ideas. You know, it has to obviously be rationalised because human beings are rational. Even though we're all a bit out of touch because we're in a matrix and we're convoluted and confused, we still tend to operate from rationale and from what we think is a reality. That's our big mistake, of course, because there is really very little, or at least most of what we think is real. Or when I say real, I mean just the facts of things. The facts that we think are real are not real at all. So there is really no reality in many ways. If you even at a real level, I don't know what I'm talking about here. Oh dear. Oh, please let me get back to. It would be nice to make a sensible, calm, rational video, wouldn't it? I'm very sorry that I get so hyped up, because it's not good to do that. And there's no point in me pretending that I'm on top of this matrix and that and that, because like I said, even with making the video, I was aware that that people who are close can watch the videos, because I have a subscriber even. But not everyone that subscribes actually listens to my whole videos. Let's just say that this is an explanation, and I may delete this video because in case someone does decide to watch it, because I don't want to cause any more problems. That's why I say I'm walking a tightrope. And obviously what's close to you has to be taken into account more than what's on the other side of the world, because I'm dealing with that. And also it's important to me, because I'm really going to have a lot more, what is important to me is what is close to me. Even the possessed dog, possessed cat, whatever, they're close to me. Possessed people, they're close to me. So they have more impact on my life and on the reality. And also they are what I'm here for in this reality. So I have to put that as a priority over what is on the other side of the world, even though I might be more in sync mentally with someone on the other side of the world, because that person may agree with and think very similar to me, and may, in my view, know the reality. So therefore they are wanting to connect in a personal way, because of the diabolical situation that there are so few of us. The matrix ones, even the psychopaths that are personal around me, don't get that. They see you, if you are connecting to someone on the other side of the world and are relating more to that person, they see that as, they find that intimidating. They're like, that's not natural relationship. Well, of course it's not a natural relationship, but that's because we're not in natural circumstances. We're in an end time scenario, stage reality that even the psychopathic people of, that are in our personal relationships don't fully accept. They might even know of it, but they don't accept it to be real. They think there's only some truth to some of the things that even I would say. They don't think the whole picture is quite that bleak or quite that advanced, or quite that. They don't think that there's been a total takeover, as I do. The takeover of all life. They don't think that when they don't want to, because it's too unpleasant, and I get that. It's very unpleasant for me too. But once you know something is true, I was still talking to the cat, hanging on to the illusion of what once was. And right this very moment, I'm very aware of the technologically controlled or possessed dog, and I do hope that this is towards the end of the video, because if it's at the start, that's right, if I put this at the start of the video, someone who is protective towards the dog will hear it and then get upset and say you're talking a load of baloney, and they don't like it if other people agree with that. Because at the back of their mind they have doubts, I would think, because I'm being put off by my senses being impacted by the negative frequency, which is really not a frequency at all, because the frequency really is, but even your sense of smell, it can make you feel awful if it's an unpleasant smell, shall we say. That's when the matrix is mildly throwing itself at you, mildly throwing negative, so-called negative energy, because that is not real energy at all. That is just attacking but like I say, the sound frequency, can bring you down to such an extent that then you are open to physical negative energy attacks. That's how I would now see it, putting it at a very, because the human being, if they, this has been expressed better than me, but I did realise this myself a few months ago. I already knew some of these things, but sometimes you understand what's happening to you, you know what you should be doing, but you're still not fully getting how the attacks can be stronger one day than another. And that's assuming that the attacks on a human being at a frequency vibrational level are always the same. And they may or may not be, because the matrix could be playing you. So that's what I thought. In other words, you do something the matrix finds negative, so therefore it will counter with its positive negative energy. Because don't forget, the matrix is like, this world is a reverse world. The matrix itself also sees everything reverse. Matrix God entity, because it's a different being, it sees human beings as a negative from its perspective. But the reason that I am not in agreement with this being is because it is based on its prejudice, its way of looking at a human being. But a human being isn't necessarily looking at the reality or the being that way. It's a one-sided prejudice, going back a bit like holding a grudge for 100 years or 1,000 years or whatever, that sort of thing. It's like that. Whereas the human being does not harbour any grudge towards the God entity. But of course it will work against the God entity in this reality, because it sees everything as negative. So it ends up becoming like that. But if you go back to the reason for the game, I would imagine that it is, but also some species just don't like other species. Or is that something we've been conditioned to too? I'm not sure. I don't actually know that, because I don't even know how life originally worked or how it was meant to work. In my own fantasy way of looking at it, I tend to think that all life, natural life, should get on, should complement one another, or at least not intentionally do harm. But, I don't know. But either way, the world has gone so far away from all that kind of thing anyway. It's a total idealised fantasy that may or may not have ever existed. And if it ever did exist, it certainly hasn't existed to my knowledge for a long, long time. And I don't even have no way the knowledge of all the past that I should have. No way. In fact, a lot of legends and mythological stuff, which I talked about when I first started making videos, when I didn't even know what I was talking about, because I'd only heard a few videos, and that's me all over. I just a ball gets thrown at me and I just grab it and run, as they say. And as you know, I can't play sport, so that's a joke too. But basically, I place it on what I see in my own reality. Then if something is presented to me, I take it on board and say, should I run with this ball? Should I take this information and say that it fits what I already know to be so? Or does it not? And most of what gets thrown at me just happens to fit. Now, whether that is intentional, or whether I brought it to me, or whether it has to be given to me, I don't know. I only know that I have done that, and I think that's how humans are meant to operate. And I think the Matrix has thrown this up to me with others, with the demigods that do this, that say, oh, well, everything just comes to me. Well, I don't think it does come to it comes to the demigods because they take it. Those are the Matrix. They take it because they have the technology that can take and read the human mind, etc. But it also appears that humans have to be given a certain amount of reality too. Or is it only if you've got to some point, or only if the matrix opens up, that it's your turn for some sort of end game playing or so? I do not know. I can only speak for what happens in my own reality. I feel as though I have played a football game, and yet all I've done is yak for a small video. That's how the matrix can make you exhausted, and yet I've still got other things to do. So I still have to face the matrix. Some people choose not to face the matrix even. They say, "Oh, I won't go down to the shop to get my bread and milk. Maybe I'll get it delivered. Maybe I'll stay home." Maybe they're right, but at the same time, I think the matrix is very happy if you do that. But the thing is that if you thought you were if you thought it was better for your well-being to stay home, in other words, to where you're not psychologically disturbed by the matrix control system, shall we say, or control system, same thing. If you've got negative, if you are living in a technologically controlled local region where where you are not necessarily physically better off in your own shelter, shall we say. But then if you go out, you face the matrix control force, or that reality, which suppresses you, even though it appears to be, at the moment it doesn't even appear so free and easy anyway, but in the past it appeared to be free and easy. So either way, my way of looking at it is you can't win. It's a lose-lose situation. And also, to my own way of looking at it, you are only marginally better off outside at a physical level. But psychologically, you are disturbed. But then again, as you know, even in your own place, you can be physically at risk of negative frequencies and energies by technology that's all around you, because we live in a technologically controlled reality, and we use technology and bring it even into our own home. That's what we choose to bring in. Also, there are frequencies that come in that we don't definitely choose to have come in, that are either just going through the air, or that others can send into your place because everyone else is using technology too, and they may or may not be using it wisely. And, and if you are of a narcissistic, psychopathic personality type, which makes up the vast majority of what appears to be real people, then you are not going to worry about whether you use technology positively or negatively with those around you, whether it be a neighbour or anyone. It doesn't matter, because you don't care for those people. And if it is more in your interest at a physical level to be negative towards some people around you, you have no hesitation in doing that. More so, like I say, if it benefits you in some way, and also if you just choose to be part of the matrix, because in other words, you choose to be part of the collaborative effort that really is working against human beings. because you want to be on the winning side. That's how you see it. A bit like in that movie They Live. We all remember there was a part in that. I haven't seen it for a while. Tried to see it again the other day because I did see it about twice, many moons ago, as they say, but they've taken it off the YouTube now, so unfortunately I couldn't watch it again. I just thought I might, sometimes you like to just, revisit an old movie, but I do remember that, many in that movie, like if I remember correctly, and this probably could apply to the reality. I'm not sure, because certainly this reality is still different in some ways to that movie, but probably only in the sense that the numbers might be different. In other words, in that movie, in that They Live movie, it clearly showed sorry about that. Yeah, I've got the funny gloves on today. They're not very comfortable, but I have mentioned this before, that I've been doing this since I was 14, 15 years old. So the reality, well, actually, that's, there again. See, the problem with telling things on a mobile or on a video is that you have to make everything short. Whereas if I could tell people on the other end things slowly and calmly, occasionally I muddle things up or say something that may not be consistent with something I've said before. That's because I am stressed. Like I say, I've been wearing the gloves and I've had the condition since I was 14. But I didn't wear gloves when I was, in my teen years or early 20s. But ever since I've been at Leichhardt, I have wore gloves, which is a long, long time now. Since I've been at Henry Street Leichhardt, which is here, I started wearing gloves. So you're talking at a very long time, but I've still had the condition before that. So it shows you that, how you deal with the condition, because that's how people are dealing with circumstances now. They're saying, oh, there's contamination. That's what I used to say, contamination, germs, etc. Before it was like washing all the time, or not touching things, or touching things with a tissue or something like that, or using other things so you don't handle things directly, and then other times you'd use gloves to protect yourself. Gloves are not as economical, so it's always easier to use things that are more, because gloves can be more expensive, so unless you're wearing them like people do now, they're using them, wearing them, keeping them on their hands. Whereas if you, like with my condition, with my OCD, it's so extreme. Like I can relate totally to this, to viruses and things, because you're actually thinking like this pandemic from a young age, to where it's about not touching or any cross interaction at an extreme level. It's a very unpleasant way to live. And now to see the whole world living like it's just because I always considered that it was a curse, because it limited my freedom. I could never relax. Like you can't relax basically if you've got obsessional compulsive disorder. That is, if it is, obsessive compulsive disorder, which I've had, can be directed in certain areas. I've always had it in the area of fear of germs, fear of contamination, fear of things not being clean, particularly some things. In other words, the cross contamination by what I consider to be dirty germs, okay? And I'm not going to, the problem is that I could say things completely wrong because I haven't got the time in a video to be clear on everything, to be specific. And, so if I sort of get down to the details, I may or may not, I might for the sake of the video just say, well, I wore gloves, that's something I've done. But, I would actually be not technically correct if I said that I had worn them from the day that I got the condition. But I could say I've worn them for 20 years at least, more than that actually. But like I say, there's different ways of dealing with it. But either way, that whole mentality, that incredible fear of not being able to relax in your reality, that's what it comes down to. I was never really able to relax at any time unless I felt that I was free from contamination. And this is what is now taking place in the reality. So that is not a normal way to live or to think. And I always knew this. Now, but if people think it's based on where they can actually, they actually believe that they can die, well, they can operate the same way. So then they create a very unnatural, very stressed, very fearful, very controlled reality, because OCD, or obsessional compulsive disorder, can totally control your way of thinking and your life. It limits you greatly. It directs where you will go, what you will do, what you will touch, what you will. It can, and yes, it does prevent you from social interaction. I've experienced all this, and now this is becoming the norm. So, I think I'm running out of space. I think I'll have to fold up because I think I went my limit. I hope I explained those videos, and I didn't. I might have to do another one. I was going to talk about the dog and the... like I say, if I hadn't have put that comment at the beginning of the video about the dog being technologically controlled or possessed, which I was aware of 3.5 years ago, right from the start, before I even knew it was a full matrix. That was the first thing that I noticed. No, I didn't notice the cat till maybe a year or a year and a half ago. There again, I could be wrong with the time slot, so if I get the times and things wrong, it's because I get muddled up because I'm trying to just make a point with the videos. If I get some facts mixed up in my, trying to make the video too quick or getting hassled, look, don't take it to mean that everything I say is wrong and that the whole thing is not, is a big charade and that I just make the videos to fill in time or something, I don't know. But